Perfect. So yeah, keep your microphone muted. There will be a Q&A at the end. So if you want to ask a question at the end, you can, or you can type your question into the chat throughout. And then we'll get to them at the end. I'd ask you all to please rename yourself with your school name so that we know which school is asking which question. Or if you can't do that and you're typing a question in the chat, just say what school it's from as well, please. So Díomh go léir, tá fáilte rómhar fad go dtí an seminar gréasáin. Tásúil agam go bhfuil sibh go maith agus gur maithagah as a bheithlinn. Okay, so I'm going to start with the agenda for today. So I'm going to start with a little intro, which we are well underway with. And we have two really good experts for you today. So I'll pass over to them in a minute. And then we'll have a quiz in the middle. We will have prizes, not for the quiz, but for the best question today. There will be a prize. So make sure you type your questions in the chat throughout, and we will get to them at the end. And then we'll have a little wrap up at the end. So our first expert is Dr. Dahi Callaghan. He's the team lead for the EPA's air modelling and telemetry team. He has a background in ecology and is an air quality scientist. He's done a lot of research into air pollutants such as ammonia and how it affects the environment. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Dahi, please.
Thank you very much, Orla. Lovely introduction. I'm just going to have a few slides prepared. I'm going to share them now. Hit the right button. Okay, and then I will switch to presentation mode. Okay, so is that visible?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Great. Okay, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk air quality and air pollution. It's not only my job, but it's been a passion of mine for a number of years. And I want to thank Aileen for inviting me to talk today as well. So thank you very much for getting me in the virtual room. So I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of air pollution in Ireland. And again, I imagine most of you are very familiar with this already. But again, there's lots of other types of pollutants as well. But typically what we see is anywhere we've got a real problem with air pollution in Ireland, it's coming down to one of two things. And that's a combination of solid fuel burning and traffic. So we're viewing these as pretty much the biggest sources of air pollution in Ireland. So solid fuel burning is from residential heating, and burning of coal, turf, wet wood, those type of things. And what that does is it makes particulate matter, or PM2.5 or PM10. The difference between PM2.5 and PM10 is the size of the particles that are produced. So PM2.5 is 2.5 microns in size, and PM10 is 10 microns in size. Very, 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 very small. So they're really, really small particles, and they go up into smoke, and you breathe them in. And when you breathe them in, they go through your lungs and into your bloodstream, and it's not good. So then, it's kind of overexposure over time can lead to health impacts as well. But then, on the other hand, we've got traffic, which is has a different pollutant of concern, which is nitrogen dioxide. And this is kind of a bigger issue in cities and areas where you have a lot of traffic building up over time. And it's at specific times during the day as well, which is also important. And this is an irritant gas, which impacts your throat and lungs, and it contributes to other health impacts as well. But its primary impact is kind of as an irritant. There's also money from agriculture, but while that's important too, it's more for biodiversity impacts. So I'm not going to dwell on it today, and we're going to really focus in on the solid fuel and the traffic as sources of air pollution. So I mentioned health implications. This is both for both for particulate matter and for nitrogen dioxide. So typically, when you have episodes of air pollution, you're going to see short-term spikes. Short-term spikes in air pollution will lead to increased hospital admissions. So if you have periods of air pollution, people will be admitted to the hospital for various other things. Now, again, it won't be for impacts of air pollution. It'll be for asthma, or it'll be for COPD, or it'll be for something that the air pollution is contributing to. Even like heart issues with your heart too can be caused by air pollution. So it leads to, the most dire impact is obviously death, and the air pollution contributes to 1,700 premature deaths in Ireland a year and 250,000 across Europe. So they're not small figures. And as I said, there won't be air pollution will be ever written on a death certificate or listed as a cause of death, but it's contributing towards lung disease, heart disease, and these wider issues. even cancers too, that are that are contributing to deaths. But again, it's just a very large number that is air pollution is making a big contribution to. Also, we have to look at asthma too, because I mean Ireland has one of the most prevalent. It has far more cases of asthma than I think many other member states, and possibly close to the world. That 1 in 10 children and 1 in 13 adults have asthma in Ireland. So it's 7 to 10% of the population. So when air pollution exacerbates those issues, makes them worse, and we need to pay attention. And even like there was recent work done putting it, linking it to mental health, where poor air quality was linked to anxiety and depression in people too. So it's not just the direct impacts to your health, also um, your pleasure and your ability to enjoy the world that is being can be impacted by air pollution, not just the mortality and morbidity, but other aspects too. And drilling a little bit more into the PM 2.5, it mentions these are really tiny particles coming from solid fuel. You breathe them deep into your lungs, and I said it can cause cardiac issues because what happens is you breathe it into your lung, goes into your arteries and your veins, and it starts to basically pair up with the fatty materials inside there already. If you've got some of that, and it can contribute towards blood clots, etc. And as I mentioned, 1,700 premature deaths a year. Now, most of this is coming from heart disease and stroke, typically in the older population. Um, but it also contributes to things like cancer, COPD, and other respiratory infections as well. And just pulling it back to, I mentioned how tiny these particles are. You can fit 30 to 40 across the width of a single human hair. So they're really, really, really small. And that's what really, gets them deep into your lungs and into your bloodstream. And given the audience today, I thought it was worth flagging that children and adolescents are actually more vulnerable to air pollution. Not quite, not necessarily to the extent of contribute towards the 700 premature deaths, but looking at the risk of respiratory infections, asthma, and lung function, um, allergies, including rhinitis, um, and upper and infections as well. So there's lots of things that can contribute to, without necessarily causing early death. Exposure is different from adults because you have different kind of ways you go with your life, like you playing outside in school playgrounds, commuting to school, and after school activities, and typically spend more time outdoors and typically more physically active. I certainly was more physically active then than I am now, and they tend to take in more air polluted air as well because when you're younger, you may not notice, but you breathe faster than adults. You tendency to breathe closer to the mouth, and especially at young ages, you're closer to the ground where the air pollution is higher. So again, it's just coming back that just be cautious that children and adults are more vulnerable to air pollution, because your immune system might not be fully developed, and similarly, your lungs and organs are still growing and developing as you grow into adulthood. So, but the thing about air pollution is, okay, I know we're facing a lot of issues kind of globally, environmentally at the minute are quite complex. Air pollution is a fairly easy solve because if we stop polluting today, there's no problem tomorrow. But the problem is, getting there and stopping polluting today, and because a lot of the habits and behaviors are kind of built into our society, and it needs to have, it would require substantial action to kind of reduce this across the board and entirely remove air pollution from Ireland. But look, as long as everyone can be aware of it and start making incremental changes to improve air quality, I think that is all for the better. So you're looking at things like leaving the car at home, carpooling, public transport, working from home, going electric, and a good one. And again, not these aren't options that will suit everybody, but even something like reducing idling, something you might not be aware of, that if you're sitting in a car, you might be, hopefully no one, no, not too many are driving, but if your parents or your teachers are driving the car, that you're conscious that when they're if the car is not moving and it's sitting there and the engine is turned on, that's producing nitrogen dioxide, which is outside your school. If you've got a lot of cars picking up the kids at the end of the day, or dropping them off in the morning, if they're sitting there waiting with the cars idling, that's contributing towards local hotspots of nitrogen dioxide. So that's a very easy thing that would be, just with that knowledge, you could encourage people to avoid, and that would reduce their exposure to kids in the area. Um, Reducing solid fuel as well as a big one that's from PM 2.5, and reducing particulate matter pollution, how you heat your home, making it more energy efficient. But then even just simple things like just staying informed is very important too. And this is kind of where the EPA comes in, because we manage a pretty substantial air monitoring network. So it's the densest monitoring network in the European Union per capita, which means we've got more monitoring per person in Ireland than either member state, and collects real-time data. And this is all publicly available on airquality.ie. And on the bottom left there, I've got some examples of instruments that we have across these 115 stations across the entirety of Ireland. So we have the country very well covered for monitoring, but we weren't happy with just the monitoring. I'm sorry, just before we go into that next point, but that this is a map of what airquality.ie looks like. So each of these little figures is a monitoring station, and the color is actually related to the air quality in that location. So green is good, orange is fair, red is poor, and then purple is very poor. So it's kind of reflective of what the air quality is like in these different areas. But I said we weren't happy with just having the monitoring network, so we wanted to develop these air quality models. So these are maps of air quality across the entire country, and we have one that's an hourly updated map. So this is when you go into air quality, this will be underneath the monitoring stations, and this is updated every hour. So this is sped up. So this is the air pollution over a weekend when we're seeing issues with particulate matter, and because it was cold, and I think we have a cold snap coming now, so it'd be a good time to be checking airquality.ie in the coming days to watch air quality in your area and seeing if it declines with decreasing temperatures, which is probable. So that's a great way to stay informed, is look taking that website. But we also not just have the hourly update map, we also have air quality forecasts. So this forecasts what the air quality is likely to be like over the next 3 days. So it's kind of giving it, advance warning of potential air pollution coming down the road, that you might not have been aware of. And again, this is an example of a weekend where there was air pollution was forecast to be poor. Again, likely, most likely down to increased use of solid fuels over that period. And again, this is done. We make these forecasts for particulate matters, for nitrogen dioxide, and for ozone as well. And then that pulls together to make this air quality index for health map, which is basically an interpretation of those pollutants related to your health, which is the scale from 1 to 10. So 10 is bad, 1 is good. Easy to remember. But we also have incredibly detailed, high resolution maps produced. So these are kind of, we want to know on a street level what the air quality is like. So this is very important for nitrogen dioxide, because concentrations of pollutants are going to change from street to street depending on the traffic. So we now have these really good maps that utilize National Transport Authority's data. They'd spend 3 to 4 million euros a year making these incredibly detailed transport models. So we take the transport models, feed them in with a lot of other data, and we generate these really good air quality maps that are also publicly available. So you can go on the website and have a look at these maps as well. And then we update these every year because they're very, very detailed. And just a flag before I sign off. We produce an annual air quality report. The video I have here is actually of 2023 report, but it has since been updated to 2024. It's a great report. It's interactive, dynamic. There's lots of links, videos, graphs, figures. So it's very, very easy to digest. I would encourage everybody to go away and download and have a look at our most recent report from 2024. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
That was brilliant, Danny. Thank you so much. So if anyone has any questions, you can start popping them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. In the meantime, I'm going to do a little quiz with you now. So make sure that somebody is near the computer and can tick the right answer. So if we go on to the sorry now. Okay, so here we go, our clean air quiz. So question number 1 is, which of these is not air pollution? So Tasha is going to launch a poll now, and you should be able to click which one you think is not air pollution. Is it car exhaust fumes, clouds, smoke from fires, or cow farts? 7 people have answered so far. There's 42 here, so we'll give it another moment or two. Brilliant. About half the people have answered now. That's looking good. Just give 10 more seconds. So get your answers in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Brilliant. I can share the results. So you should be able to see them there. So 95% of you got it correct. Exactly. Clouds. Clouds are not air pollution. The other three all are. Okay, so we'll go on to question number two now. So question two. So yeah, clouds are the right answer. Question two, why is air pollution bad? It can make us sick. It can harm plants and animals. It makes clouds taste weird, or it makes climate change worse. You're able to click more than one answer here if you think there's more than one correct answer. Brilliant. I can see the answers all flying in here. 20 people have answered so far. Really, okay, just a few more seconds. And three, two, one. Okay, brilliant. Share the results. Yeah, there we go. It is three of those options. So air pollution is bad because it can make us sick. We've heard that from Dahi. It can harm plants and animals, and it can make climate change worse. Fantastic work, everyone. You've all been paying attention. Yeah. The next one. Which of these options is a good and realistic way to lower air pollution? Okay, keywords are realistic. Can we plant more trees? Can we catch dirty air in bottles and bury the bottles? Ban all cars, trains, and buses? Or there are no good options? Which of these do we think? There's one correct answer here. Brilliant. You're all too smart. I think we need to make these questions harder. It's going really well. Good job, everyone. Share them results as well. So, yeah, the good and most realistic way to do it to lower air pollution would be to plant more trees. Of course, like reducing cars and transport and like, walking or cycling, that would of course help, but you can't ban all trains, cars, and buses. That's not very realistic. Lovely jubbly. Sorry, I didn't share those results. Okay. Oh, I did. Sorry. Okay. Next question. We only have five questions. The second last one. Now, the next one is quite a bit trickier, I think. So let's see. Come on. Perfect. Okay. How much of the levels of air pollution changed in the European Union countries in the last 30 years? Are they three times higher, three times lower, 20 times higher, or 20 times lower? So think about this one. This one's trickier. I'll give you a little bit more time with this one. Yeah, we're getting a mixture of answers here. Okay, I'm going to say 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to share the results here. Most of you have said that they have gotten higher, that they're 20 times higher or three times higher. However, I am pleased to report that they are actually three times lower in the past 30 years. So, reasons they may have gone down are that we've gotten stricter, that we're now more aware about climate change and about what we're putting out into the atmosphere than we were back in the 1900s or even further back, 1800s, back to the Industrial Revolution or anything like that. We're now much more aware and we have cleaner energy and we have stricter laws in place and it's actually going down. So this is really positive and it is showing us that we can make a difference if we try and if we're aware of the problem we can actually impact it in a positive way. So now there is much more work to be done. That doesn't mean you can all go home and idle your cars and burn as much fossil fuels as you want. There's still a lot more to do, but it's definitely going in the right way. And then our final question is, how far can wind blow dust from the Sahara Desert? So you can see the map there, you can see the Sahara Desert. Is it just to nearby towns? Is it as far as Ireland? Is it as far as North and South America? Or is it all of the above? Okay, 13 answers have come in so far, so I'll just give you a couple more seconds. Okay, we'll give you 5 more seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, brilliant. We have said all of the above was the most popular answer, and you are correct. We can see here on the next slide, you can see a map showing how far the sand goes. So we can go the whole way over to the Amazon rainforest from the Sahara Desert, which is pretty far apart. And did you know wind and rain can transport air pollutants over great distances? Sand or dust can be a natural form of air pollution, but it's not always bad. So some of the sand from the Sahara Desert that gets all the way to the Amazon forest, it has nutrients in it that the plants in the Amazon rainforest need to grow and to thrive. So that can actually be good. Um, some of the sand that gets to Ireland can be less beneficial. You might, I don't know if any of the schools here are from Limerick, but some cars there, some buildings, the people found lots of this red dust on their vehicles, on their cars, on their windows. Quite dirty, quite hard to clean off, but that had come all the way from the Sahara Desert. So it can go a lot further than you might think. And that is the end of our quiz. So let us know how you got on in the chat. There were some tricky questions there at the end, but I'm sure you all managed them very well. And I'm now going to hand over to Lisa from Green Schools, who will introduce our next expert.
All right, thanks, Laura. That was a great quiz. We are delighted now to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Liz Coleman. She is a lecturer in physics in the University of Galway's School of Natural Sciences. Liz specialises in air quality forecasting and climate modelling and has a special interest in collaboration between art and science, which ties in nicely with our Clean Air Week competition for secondary schools, if you'd like to check that out after this. Liz is going to tell us a bit about her work now and a project she was involved in recently called The Air We Share. So over to you, Liz. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to just share my presentation.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, hopefully you can see that. All right. So thanks a million for the introduction, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. It's lovely to meet you all in the cyber world. So Lisa already introduced me that I'm a lecturer in physics and I do research in the Centre for Climate and Air Pollution Studies. So there's lots of physics in how air pollution travels and how it is emitted into the atmosphere. Just a little bit of background, because as a student I was always interested in how people ended up at the careers they're at. As a student, when I was in school, I was interested in science and physics especially, but I was also interested in art and music, and interested in protecting the environment and working with communities and also human rights. So that leads me to where I am working today. So in terms of protecting the atmosphere and more broadly protecting the environment, I'm really interested in solving problems such as air pollution and climate change, problems that are really tricky to solve, by bringing people together from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different levels of education, and people that have different skills and different knowledges and different ways of understanding the world, to find solutions that work for everybody. Because traditionally, I suppose, laws are made without consulting everybody or without input for everyone. And I don't think that leads to sustainable changes, because we've known about climate change for many, many years, and we know how to fix it by stop emitting greenhouse gases. But it's not knowledge that is stopping us from fixing it, but it's finding the right laws and the right policies and the right supports to enable the type of changes that are necessary. So that's where I'm interested in, and that's the type of science that I like to be involved in, science that will produce solutions for society. So that brings us to this project called The Air We Share. So the Air We Share is a project that was held in Galway City, and it brought together scientists with artists and community members and also the local authorities, so the people that actually are in charge of making change within Galway City. You know, the laws, regulations, buildings, roads. So bringing all these people together to try and discuss the air and the pollution that's in the air and try and find solutions. So the Air We Share, the aim was to make the invisible visible. So air pollution, it's a really hard thing to talk about with people because a lot of people aren't aware of air pollution because it's invisible, so we don't see it. So through this project, we wanted to find new ways so that people like yourselves and the public, the inhabitants of Galway City, could really understand air pollution, know where it came from, and importantly, what can be done about it. What are the effects of air pollution that Dahi just told us? And what was really exciting was it brought together scientists and artists to work with the communities within Galway City. So I'll talk about the type of data that we collected. So as Dahi showed earlier, there's lots of air pollution data. It's like really high quality data. But because of the technology that's available today, we can get what's called low cost sensors. So little devices that are affordable. Everyone can afford these little, well, not everyone, but they're affordable. They're maybe 100 to 200 euro, and they can monitor air pollution, not across the whole city, but air pollution in your home or in your house. So we can get a kind of very local appreciation of air pollution, and anyone can do this. Anyone can become a scientist and monitor their air pollution. So these are called purple air devices, and you can see this is an example of what the purple air might look like, and they were erected, they were put up over Galway City. So there was 8 of them that created a little air quality network. So we were able to see how air pollution changed throughout Galway City on a hyper local scale, so really, really local scale. So how it changed from street to street, and importantly, what was influencing this air pollution. It was measuring particles in the atmosphere, so tiny little particles that could be dust, it could be solid fuel burning, so the type of particles that come out of your chimney when a fire is lit or a stove is lit, or the particles that come from road traffic. So we got loads of data throughout this project, and this is only the scientific part of the project, which was a small component. There was also the artistic side. But let's have a look at the type of data that came out. This shows a time series, okay? So how the air pollution, the average weekly air pollution changed with time according to these low-cost sensors at the different 8 venues all around Galway City. So you can see sometimes it went up really high, and it actually went above the EU regulatory guideline for air pollution, for annual air pollution. So there were periods of high pollution. And it might be interesting for you to think of what could have caused these periods of high air pollution. We know that he said earlier that solid fuel burning or fires in people's homes and also traffic cause periods of high air pollution. So often air pollution spikes or like large bursts of air pollution occur when the weather is cold. People are burning a lot more to stay warm at home, and this causes a problem for air pollution. So it causes a problem for vulnerable people that might suffer with their lungs or have any kind of illnesses that gets worse when the air is polluted. This is the current guideline for how clean our air should be according to the World Health Organization. Okay, so the World Health Organization say when there's more particles in the air above this pink line here, the air is not healthy. Okay, so you can see that in some periods in January last year, the air pollution, the weekly air pollution was above this guideline, which means the air was effectively unhealthy to breathe. So people at Galway were at risk. People in Galway are at risk. But as we get better, and we've seen in the quiz that the air is actually getting cleaner and cleaner as regulations are coming into effect. So we're doing a good job of cleaning up our air. So in the future, the WHO, the World Health Organization, want to move towards this lower limit of air pollution. So we are trying to keep our air pollution below this limit. And you can see that in Galway City, according to these sensors, we are still exceeding. So our air is dirtier than the WHO says it should be. This is our long-term target for clean air. Now, just as a disclaimer, there is no safe level of air pollution. Asking how clean our air should be is a bit like asking how clean should your water be. Obviously, we want our water to be pristine without any pollution in it at all. So we should be all aspiring to have very clean air. Okay, so without any kind of particles that could affect our health in the atmosphere. So we've seen air pollution spikes, and we've also seen how air pollution varies throughout the day. Here is an example of one station, and it shows how there's a nighttime peak. So this on the bottom here, it shows how the air pollution varies throughout the day. Let me use my laser pointer here. So in the morning at rush hour, there is a peak, and the peak is a small little bump here, and then a large nighttime peak that starts rising around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then reaches a maximum at around 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. and then starts falling off again. So this occurs due to as the day goes on, people start lighting their fires, and these different coloured lines here represent the different seasons. So the green is summer, the orange is springtime, autumn is the red line, and winter is the blue line. So you can see how, especially in wintertime, there are these nighttime peaks that occur when solid fuel, or they occur at the same time that people are lighting fires. So these are two different stations within Galway City, and we see the same kind of patterns in both. And this comes from the scientific data. And one thing we're interested in is to see how the weather affects the amount of pollution in the city as well. So how what else is happening when the air pollution is bad? So we create these kind of graphs that show that as the day goes longer, as the day gets later, as the hour of the day increases, pollution increases, and with higher pressure, we get more air pollution as well. So by bringing together data from meteorology, so weather data, as well as the air pollution data, we're able to figure out what conditions will lead to air pollution episodes. So that's an example of what we can do scientifically. But remember, as I said before, we're very interested in bringing people together from different walks of life or different understandings of the universe. So there must be another way to understand the data. To reach our sustainable development goals, or to kind of reach our targets for how we'd like to create solutions for society, we need to have everyone working together, not just the scientists, but also artists and community members. And if we were to have everyone working together and to understand these issues, it's important to remember that over 40% of the US population have inadequate health literacy, or means they're not very good at reading graphs. So I'm sure some of you, I showed some of them graphs, some of you understand them straight away, and some of you it'll take a little bit more time to understand what I'm talking about. That's because we all have different ways of learning and knowing. So that leads us to this project called the Air We Share, where we asked artists to work with scientists, work with the data in order to create work that will allow people to understand the data in a different way. So I have a short video here, and I don't know, will it play? It won't play, but it explains the whole process, how the project worked, how we got scientists to bring the data to the artists, and the artists can then reflect on what scientists know about air quality and what the sensors say, and reflect this in artworks. So I'm just going to talk through some of the work that was produced through this project that allowed people to understand the air in a different way. So this artwork was called, it was created by Sam and Paula. So Sam Vardy and Paula McCluskey, that are two artists that are based in Cork. And they created a piece of art called The 9 Freedoms of the Air, where every week they got people to sit around a table. So the same community members came together, and they would learn about, they would create textile. So by stitching and learning how to stitch, and also learning about the air from different experts. they created this art piece that reflected that kind of, it was a response to what they were learning about the air, what was in the air, how they think that we should be protecting the air. So you can see here, I hope you can see this work here. It's really beautiful. It was exhibited in Galway Art Centre in the month of August, and it was really, really popular. So the work, the textile was created in collaboration with community members and also a professional artist, and it reflected not only what was in the air, what affects the air, and how we should protect it, and not only the scientific data, but also folklore and stories and human rights, and how we all need to play our part in protecting the air. The air doesn't belong to one particular person, but it belongs to all of us. And I'll move on to the next piece of work here. This was a sound installation. So when people came into the gallery, they could hear these small little bells ringing. And the bells rang in response. There was a little air quality sensor here. So when the air quality changed, it would trigger a sound to be emitted from each of these singing bowls. So the artist here wanted people to experience air pollution in a different way. So instead of just looking at a graph that came out of the sensor, they come into a room and they would know how polluted the air was by these bowls, how much they were singing. And you might have seen these Tibetan singing bowls before. They're often used in meditation. If people are praying, they might use a singing bowl to sound and would help them relax and help them pray. So this allowed the people coming into the gallery to feel the air pollution in a different kind of way. And finally, this was another piece of work created by an artist who lives in Galway called Leon Butler. So he created this light installation where the air pollution data from the sensors was represented by these white neon bright lights. And when people came into the room, they experienced the air pollution data, not by looking at a graph, but when the lights started flashing and the buildings on which the sensors were hung were represented on this screen, people could feel the effect of the air pollution. And when there were more people in the room, the lights would start flashing in an uncomfortable way. So this kind of showed how air pollution makes the earth a little bit more uncomfortable, and was a really effective way to engage people with the topic of air pollution. So that's an example of the artworks that came out of the Air We Share project. And just to think of what was the effect, why should we bring artists into the conversation? Art brings the data to the public in new and unique ways, and it creates space for the public not just to know about air pollution, but to feel the effects of the data. Because we know that emotions are strong drivers of climate action. So facts alone, or knowledge alone, or science alone are not going to change the way people behave or change our climate or our environment. They can change understanding, but they rarely lead to long-term changes in behavior. So the best way that we can create science and communicate science in a way that will have a long-lasting effect is when science communication covers both facts and emotion, because action only comes from both knowing and feeling. And this was represented in some of the feedback that we got. So some people said that coming to the art exhibition, it made them appreciate what we share, it made them appreciate the air, and it was scary, but it made people want to know more. And people said that they never thought about the air like this. So it was a new way of knowing and experiencing the air. Someone said they really enjoyed the singing bowls and the responses to talking and breathing near the sensors. And this helps people feel more connected. So I hope that shows you kind of the different ways that we can experience data, and that how scientists and artists can work together in order to bring data to the public in a way that will encourage people to change to protect the atmosphere. Okay, so I've gone a little bit over time, but thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
That was great. Thank you so much, Liz. I'm now going to pass to Aileen and Lorraine, who have been monitoring the chat. So hopefully they have some questions for Liz and Dahi. So we'll spotlight our two experts and they can address your questions to them. Although I see that they've been answering some in the chat already as well. But
Yeah, there's been some great questions, a huge variety of questions coming in. I'm going to start with one that was asked a few minutes ago, and it's about how long we think it will take for Ireland to reach the targets that have been set out. I'm guessing that was from the EU, on reducing air pollution. That's a really difficult question. That's a great starter question.
Mm.
So I'm going to open that one to Dahi or Liz, whoever wants to take that one on board.
We have goals, and obviously we've requirements to meet specific goals by 2030. And we have already flagged a number of towns and cities that will not achieve those goals based on current air quality standards. So the likes of Dublin City won't meet the 2030 limits for NO2. The towns like Ennis, Letterkenny, Edenderry, and a few others, not just those, won't meet them for PM 2.5. So again, the new directive requires these local authorities to write a roadmaps, is what they're called, kind of paving a clear way for actually achieving these air quality goals in the future. So they're still in development. So the goal will be to meet them by 2030. And if we don't meet them by 2030, we are going to be facing potentially fines from the European Commission for exceeding the limits. But again, the fines shouldn't be a motivation to improve air quality. The motivation should be to improve people's health. So I don't think I'm not sure if we have a handle on exactly when we will hit those goals, but we are required to hit them by 2030. But it's likely that we will be over some of them at that point.
I have another question here, Aileen, and I might pass this one over to Liz, and it's from Killian in Corduff National School. We've had lots of questions in from Corduff National School. They're on fire. And Killian wants to know, do buildings affect the air quality?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, buildings do. I suppose everything affects our air quality. Like there's lots of ways to think of buildings. One is when you're actually building a house that releases a lot of mechanical dust, so a lot of that which affects our air quality, and also how we heat our buildings is a really important part of how what like what causes bad air quality in Ireland. So I mentioned, both myself and Dahi mentioned a good few times, that the biggest problem with air pollution in Ireland is the pollution that comes out from heating our homes through fires. So that is a huge source of air pollution in Ireland. So that really has to do with buildings. Now the good news is a lot of modern buildings now, they're built to such a high standard that there's no need for a high fire to keep them warm. So like there's a lot of good news and there's a lot of new technology out there. But yes, the buildings and how we live within buildings, that affects our air quality. One other aspect is that indoor air quality and outdoor air quality are completely different. We spend an awful lot of time indoors, and pretty much myself and Dahi have been talking about outdoor air quality. But when you're in your house, there's an awful lot of sources of air pollution as well. And that's something to be mindful of. You need the proper ventilation in order to keep everyone healthy indoors. So I hope that answered your question.
That absolutely does, Liz. Thank you so much. Aileen, can I sneak in with another little one, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me just scroll back here. I don't know, was this Kurt? No, this is Firhouse Community College, and I love this is one of my favorites. What type of plants would help sort of clean your air inside? But I'll just read out a list here that I shared: snake plant, spider plant, peace lily, rubber plant, Boston fern, Ficus bambino. So I'm just wondering, I'll pose this question to Dahi and Liz. Do you like the idea of plants for helping clean the air, reduce CO2, and do you have them in your home or your office?
Good question. I'll put my hand up and say, actually, I don't. While I agree with it, I don't actually have any plants in my home. Maybe I should get some. But I do know even that trees are very good for the way they function for removing of the pollutants PM and ammonia as well is as increased surface area. So say for trees, for example, that the more surface area you have on a tree, the more leaves, the more air pollution is going to take out from the atmosphere because it's acting as the physical barrier to it. And I mentioned in the chat as well, something you need to think of if you're putting like rows of trees into a city street, for example. I've seen examples where what that can actually do if you have a big tree and cars going underneath the trees, it can actually trap and circulate NO2 underneath the trees. So um, while they are very good for cleaning air and removing air pollutants in ammonia, PM, and NO2 as well, to be conscious that in the wrong place, they can actually contribute to increase levels of air pollution in specific areas, i.e., underneath the trees, beside on the roadside, in an urban area. But again, that's a very unique example of where that could occur.
Liz, what about yourself?
You know the way some people have green fingers and they can,
Yeah.
make everything grow. I'm the opposite. So although I absolutely love plants and would love to have them indoors, unfortunately, it doesn't normally work out for me because I have the gift of being able to kill any plants that come into my house. But absolutely, they can create this barrier effect, which can either cause trap air pollution or protect one from air pollution. So we kind of have to know which way the wind is blowing and where the air pollution sources to be able to, be clever about where we plant trees and create barriers in a way that will make air pollution better for all of us.
Perfect.
Air
Thanks
plants
very
are
much.
ideal. Okay, I've killed them too.
Yeah, me too. They're great questions. Aileen, do you have any more questions?
Well, I'm conscious that we're running out of time here. I was going to just maybe ask a quick question and then I'm going to pass it over to Kieran to wrap everything up because I'm sure everyone's eager to move on to your next class. So I just had a thought. I saw a few questions around, where is the worst air quality and where's the best air quality? And I was just thinking about Ireland in general. Like, are there any hotspots in Ireland around poor air quality? And what would those be?
Yeah, I can field this one because I mentioned some of them already. There are specific examples I had listed, but if you go on to say for example, and one links, I'll make sure I'll share my slides so you have so you can have all the links that are presented in my slides too. But on our high resolution maps of Ireland, it's very clear, quick to see where it has issues that are PM and or nitrogen dioxide. And to sum it up, pretty much every city has some issue with nitrogen dioxide, and because you have a lot of traffic, that's a big issue. Any city, and you've the 5 cities we have: Dublin, Cork, Galway, Waterford. Anywhere you have a lot of traffic, you're going to have issues with NO2. Then for the PM 2.5, it's kind of down towns that are more reliant on solid fuels, are the heaviest hitters. So I think there's 5 of those. So it's going to be Letterkenny, Ennis, Tralee, I think is one, and Eton Derry are the heaviest hit for PM. But again, to bear in mind, it's not just those towns either, because any small village around Ireland, I've walked around many myself in the evening on a cold evening, that is where people are burning solid fuel, you're going to notice smoke. I walk around my local town, was Killucan in Westmeath, and again, it's not appearing on any map, it's not appearing on any monitoring stations, it's just a small town. But again, on a cold evening, there's enough people there that will be burning something that is going to make the street smoky. So again, I'm walking around, and I've used to go jogging, and I'd be coughing at the end of the jog because of exposure to air pollution. That is just kind of happening at a very small local level. So it's pretty much any small town across Ireland that has any prevalence of solid fuel burning. So it could be anywhere.
Thanks, Dahi. So you'd recommend then that people check the airquality.ie website then, and they can
Yeah.
have a look at their town or village where they are.
As a first protocol, but for sure. But then also to believe your eyes and nose. And if you're coughing and you see smoke, don't trust airquality.ie over your own senses.
Yeah, good point. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to pass over to Kieran. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. That was absolutely amazing. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for attending. A massive thanks to our expert speakers, Liz and Dahi, for their very engaging and informative presentations. Thanks also to our Globe colleagues and to Green Schools as well. And most importantly, to the students and teachers for attending. We're always inspired by your dedication, your enthusiasm, and your hard work. So keep it up. And remember that a small action has a big impact, and your actions can really make a difference. And spread the message, inform others, get other people involved, and join the movement. And talking about spreading the message, we had a fantastic competition open to secondary school students, where we're asking you to come up with a creative campaign idea that highlights the human impact of air pollution and to inspire others to take action. You can find all the details and information on the Green Schools Ireland website, www.greenschoolsireland.org. And you'll be another chance to win some great cash prize perfect for the Christmas. We also have a great art competition for primary school students called Lung Art. So we're looking to see lots of expressive and playful pieces of art sent in to us. So once again, thank you all for attending, guys. Have a great day and best luck and enjoy the rest of Clean Air Week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks all. Enjoy. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure,